A Real Pain is a dramedy about two cousins rekindling their bond while touring across Poland. It's really funny while still managing to be touching underneath. Let's talk about it. In this movie, we follow David, played by Jesse Eisenberg, and Benji, played by Kieran Culkin. After losing their grandmother, the two of them honor her by going on a Holocaust tour through her home country of Poland. Benji's spontaneity proves to be meddlesome to David throughout the trip, and their inner struggles start to seep out as it gets harder for them to go on this tour. So the title of this movie suggests that Benji is just a real pain in David's neck, and he is, but the title actually goes beyond him because the movie is just about pain. It's about the hardships we endure and the lasting impacts they leave on us that are buried deep inside beyond the recognition of others. This speaks to most of the characters. The two leads and the other tourists each have their own pains that they carry while on this tour. But it also speaks to the pain that resonates throughout the places that they visit. This movie sort of doubles as a portrait of what their people have endured. For most of the movie, the serious elements of the story take the back seat to the relationship between David and Benji. They're on this tour, but we don't really hear much of the tour guide's descriptions until much later because it's focused on the cousins. There's some good commentary on the difficulties of growing apart. It's established that they used to be really close, but now they just feel like very different people who don't meld together. David is very composed. He's got a family, a good job, and he's not the type of guy to attract very much attention. Benji, on the other hand, is unhinged and wildly unpredictable. Every time you think you have him all figured out, he says something totally out of pocket. Naturally, their relationship has changed because they're not kids anymore, and they each have their own ways of expressing how they feel about that. Their dynamic is a lot of things. It's awkward, it's bitter, it's complicated. The two of them have a lot of layers to their relationship. But more than anything, it's really funny. Benji is really obnoxious and animated compared to everyone else on the tour, making the whole fish out of water trope its primary source of comedy. This movie is hilarious. There's plenty of light humor sprinkled throughout it, but there are a few moments that legitimately had me laughing out loud. There's a lot of quick banter, like characters are going back and forth talking as soon as the other person is done speaking. But some of the best jokes just came from Benji's insensitive behavior. He often makes subtle jabs and oversteps boundaries because he's just clueless, and that was always funny. It is a bit of a tired trope where the unhinged supporting character's outlandish behavior is wearing the main character thin for comedic value, but it was done well here. This did at one point get a little bit exhausting, but that was also right before the movie took a turning point and actually got a lot more emotional. So it was kind of like a blowout for Benji's obnoxiousness. Later in the movie, the laughs get further and fewer, but that's to leave room for the dramatic side of the story to have an impact on the viewer. And the movie really succeeded with that. It eventually leads us to a point that forces us to recognize the pain that others have endured. Getting to the more serious parts of the Holocaust tour and learning about the pains of the other tourists made this movie so much more than just another road trip comedy. I also gotta give it to the music. The score is composed entirely of classical piano music, which was honestly perfect. It's sometimes very somber, as you'd probably imagine with classical piano music, but it's mostly really energetic, which actually really contributed to the movie's comedic tone. Alright, so Benji was the movie. He's well written with a lot of character depth, but he's made so much more radiant by Kieran Culkin's wonderful performance. He is so good in this movie. He's been getting a lot of awards buzz this season for this performance, and he is well worth the hype here. I do think it's a little bit strange that he's being projected to get nominated for Best Supporting Actor, when in reality he's actually just a co-lead. Straight up, dude, he carried the movie from start to finish. He even has more dialogue than Jesse Eisenberg. So calling him a supporting actor, though it might be accurate, seems a little bit strange. That's not to detract from Jesse, though. David is the heart and soul of the movie, and we see everything through his eyes. Benji is only funny because he's a thorn in David's side. He gives a great performance. He's just, he's just Jesse Eisenberg. He's exactly what you're expecting, so he's not really doing anything revolutionary. That's just referring to his presence on screen, though. He did also write and direct this movie, and he did a great job. There's a lot to dig into with the characters that he's written. They each have flaws and some traits that you'd be surprised by. And some of the dynamics will probably surprise you too. By the sound of the premise, it might sound like a pretty predictable movie, but the ways that each of the characters feel about each other made the movie so much more interesting. It sort of lures you into a prejudice trap and then subverts your expectations in clever ways. So this movie is great. It might leave you hanging if you're really interested in the history lesson of the tour, since it hovers in the background for a majority of the movie. But it's the compelling characters and witty humor that make it a wonderful experience overall. I thought it was a really good time. If you're looking for good laughs in a story that has a serious side to it, This one's worth checking out. But it might not be the one to watch if you've recently watched an Odd Couple movie or anything with a man-child for a main character. Those tropes are just better in small doses. Thank you for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my reviews of Wicked and Gladiator 2.